Behold New York, the once legendary Empire State, where corruption, waste, and laziness stultify the Albany legislature. Big unions, the education lobby, and enviro whack jobs push New York's already intolerable tax burden to outrageous new heights. The state's best and brightest flee to saner states, leaving a crumbling socialist New Age penal colony disproportionately populated by malingerers, criminals, and self-serving grievance groups, perennially attached to the teat of a bloated and indifferent government. Can anyone save New York? Is it worth saving? One person thinks so.
It's a beautiful day in upstate New York. Welcome to the show. Bill Nojay here, and today, two special guests, Bob Turner. Congressman Bob Turner to you and me. Wham bam! That was a headline in the New York Post when Congressman Turner won the special election in the seat vacated by Anthony Weiner. We all know why he left. What was the surprise is that Congressman Bob Turner won that special election. It's a district where Democrats outnumbered Republicans by 3-1. We're going to be talking about his race to replace another Democrat in the United States Congress, this time a Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Also with us on today's show, Jack Ziegenfuss. He is the supervisor of the town of Cohocton. They've got federal issues, both with agriculture, energy production, and such. So we're going to be asking the congressman to talk about the issues important to upstate New York. With the supervisor chiming in, you can ask some questions as they come along. This is going to be a great opportunity. We're going to spend the whole show today talking with the congressman about his campaign running against Kirsten Gillibrand. Congressman, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. It's great to be here, Bill.
Now, you've got a little experience yourself in the media industry, I know. Before you became you're exactly the kind of person we always talk about should be in politics, somebody who really spent most of their career not in politics.
Indeed. My political career is only less than 2 years old now, and I'm not here for the long term either. I have a job to do, and I want to do it.
Tell us about how you did. I mean, you were in the private sector your entire career. You're a very, very successful businessman. You actually invented certain parts of the media industry. How did you get involved or decide you were going to run when Anthony Weiner's congressional career came to an abrupt end?
Well, I was watching the O'Reilly Factor, and I was actually enjoying a semi-retirement when Mr. Weiner was failing to explain why we need 16,000 new IRS agents to police this wonderful new Obamacare law. So as I was yelling at the television set, my wife said, "Why don't you do something?" Well, one thing led to another. I actually called a fellow named Mike Long, who runs the Conservative Party here in New York.
And who has been a guest on the show.
And who is a neighbor of mine and a friend. And we just talked politics. And I asked him, who's running against Weiner? You know, something has to be done here. I want to send a check. And next thing you know, it was a bigger check than I thought, and it was me.
Of course, Mike Long, United States Marine, you were Army.
That is true.
That's right. You were Army 62 to 65.
Actually, 4. I did 2 years. Pushed my draft up after school.
Okay.
To get that obligation out of the way, and.
Well, thank you for your service this Memorial Day weekend that the rest of the country is celebrating. It's so you didn't intend then to be a candidate. You wanted to support somebody else being a candidate.
That is true, and even in the special election, if they had found a better candidate, I was willing to support them there too.
But you did run. The special election was held September 13th of 2011, and you beat your Democrat opponent by a margin of more than 3,500 votes in a district where Democrats outnumber Republicans by 3-1. Why do you think you won that election?
I think there are a lot of factors, but for the most part, people across this country are feeling the same way. There's a great distrust of government. There's even a disgust with our policies. They don't feel they've been told the truth. They need jobs. They're concerned with the economy. They see this as leaderless, directionless,
and they want to change.
Coming out of Washington, and they want to change.
Yeah. And as we were talking during the break, I said, Jack, your constituents, Steuben County, what would they ask if they had an opportunity to talk to a future United States Senator? What do you think their issues, what are the issues that are important to them?
Well, first of all, Bill, thanks for the invitation to be here. And Congressman, certainly a pleasure to meet you. And I know that there's a lot of work to be done. And we're from, obviously, a rural, upstate area where the population mainly is rural farming type of community. And jobs is a tough one because we all know that you have to have job creation to make the economy work. And the other thing is, I think the big one is, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, is regulations. Regulations on our farmers, regulations on our energy industry, things that hamper businesses from coming into New York and doing business. And just like you to, if you'd comment on that.
I think this election will be about jobs in the economy and what can government do about it. The government doesn't really sustain jobs, or the best they can do is get out of the way and let entrepreneurs and business people develop. That's not happening. We have, particularly in New York, an oppressive tax system driving businesses out. We're overregulated. From the banks, the recent Dodd-Frank bill, the ability of people to borrow money and get mortgages and create new entities is hampered, overregulated. We have an EPA that is overreaching its authority, hampering business development, increasing the costs of business in every way. This costs people jobs. We'll also be talking about, in this campaign, about an energy policy and how it impacts our jobs and the economy. Right now we're paying almost $4 for a gallon of gas. There's no reason for that. 4 years ago or 3 years ago, it was half that, less than half that. What has this government done to alleviate the problem? In fact, they've done everything to make it worse. The energy policies here deny that this is a supply and demand situation, but that's exactly what it is.
Well, Supervisor, you mentioned agriculture. It's this part of the state, heavily agriculture. You've got the Chesapeake Bay Initiative that the EPA has launched. How is that playing in Chemung County, Steuben County, the southern tier?
Well, from what I understand of that regulation, that it would really be a devastating blow to the local farmers. It's just the regulations are overwhelming. The compliance is that they're going to have to comply with is going to be phenomenally expensive, and in some cases, we just had a feed mill down that's been in our town for probably 30, 40 years that just had to close its doors because of new regulations that just came out. That I understand the idea is to protect our food supply and everything else, but it was going to cost them, this small little mom and pop feed mill business, over $1 million of new equipment to comply with a regulation. And these are the regulations that are just hurting agriculture in the southern tier.
Congressman Turner, well, how do you deal with that if you're a member of a legislature dealing with the EPA?
Largely, Congress is playing catch-up. You know, we find out that the EPA, under its presumed authority from legislation passed years ago, has enacted a new edict, a new ruling. So we play catch-up. We put, when they changed the regulations on cement emissions, which would put every plant in the United States out of business. We then have to say, whoa, this is not what we intend to do, and it's not doing any good.
And how do you get the EPA to listen to you? Because you've got some real radicals running the EPA.
They don't, and they're not going to until January, when we're able to fire a substantial number of them and put a whole series of different policies in place.
Under the Romney administration.
I would hope, yes. And this is a group run amok. They are attempting now to, and have been, to get carbon dioxide classified as a toxic emission, which would give them control over how you exhale to every piece of business and every human activity there is.
Yeah, not to mention the cows on a lot of our farms here in upstate New York.
Those terribly offenders with their methane
polluters.
gas emissions.
Supervisor, let's talk about fracking. It's a tough issue. It's politically a dynamite issue. Where do the folks in Cohocton stand? And then, Congressman, what's your stance on the issue? Jack, what's lead off? What do you do with that issue in the southern tier?
Well, as you know, fracking, just like the wind industry, certainly has the people, obviously the fors and the against. And I think at the end of the day, whether you're for it or against it, you have to kind of hope and kind of rely on good, solid studies and work that other agencies should have done and are doing, I think, to try to make sure that we don't get into a situation where the regulations are so loose that a catastrophe could happen. And I think that just like with our wind industry, we have in the town of Cohocton, we have 50 400-foot windmills that each one produces 2.5 megawatts of energy, enough energy to power 50,000 homes. And this is the largest wind farm in all of the southern tier. And now, of course, as you say, the controversy of fracking. Now we're talking about not going up in the air. Now we're talking about going down in the ground. And that is a whole new set of problems. But I think that in New York State, and Congressman, you can weigh in on the federal aspects of this, but I have seen some of the proposed regulations of fracking, and the thing of it is that the DEC, although the rules are not completed yet, but they are doing a tremendous job in making sure that they cover all the bases.
Well, Congressman, this fracking debate, we've got the wind. As long as I've been around, we've been talking about how America has to become energy independent. You're on the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Right now, we are paying a fortune for oil, and it's coming back and through filters to bite us.
$4 a gallon gasoline.
Yes, and we're also supplying and supporting our enemies. I think we have to recognize that we will be using carbon fuel, hydrocarbons, for the next 75 years. And there's an opportunity here to have a whole game changer with natural gas. Now, Jack, as you said, if it can be done, and it can be done safely with proper regulation, let's do it. This will meet our strategic needs, bring our energy costs down, and it will just face the reality that we will be using this type of fuel for a long time. The world will.
In fact, there's enough natural gas underneath America to supply energy needs for, the next 50 or 100 years, something like that?
Yeah, beyond that even. Yeah. But as other sources are developed and come online, that's the reality of the situation. So, and it's cleaner than oil. So let's do it, and let's expand our other areas in the meantime where we can get oil offshore in some of our reserves. 10 years ago, we were told we couldn't be self-sufficient. It would take us 10 years. Well, here we are. We haven't done it. So let's not be in the same spot 10 years from now. There's a lot of things we can do. We can be self-sufficient. We can have lower prices. We can create jobs. We can spur the economy. It's all in front of us. It takes a little political will and a little political backbone, and something lacking in Washington right now, leadership.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Congressman, is there an energy policy? I mean,
That's a good question.
Well,
I mean,
and it is a good question because the regular American person like myself, we don't see it.
I don't think there is. Now, years ago, we created the Department of Energy. Now, so far, all they've done is find ways not to produce energy. This is one of the worst fiascos that we've had. So.
No, we got Department of Energy. What was that, Jimmy Carter administration
yes,
or something
it was,
thereabouts?
yes.
That was a long, long time ago. So often we get the media doing interviews with people who want to get elected to this office or that, and there's sort of canned questions, and a good political person could knock them out of the park. So we thought we'd invite the supervisor here. He's going to ask questions that people in the news media might not normally ask. So, Jack, let me ask you: I mean, what if you're talking to your constituents over a cup of coffee at the diner, what would they want to ask the congressman here about elected officials running for the United States Senate and such?
Well, I think, Bill, that the number one thing that I think that I come across when people talk to me, of course, as you know, us people that are at the lowest level of government are closest to the people. And let me tell you, they'll let you know what's on their mind. And we're right there. And I think the one big thing that I hear most often, whether it be in the coffee shop or at the post office or wherever it is that there's this huge distrust and so much like, let's get rid of these people. You know what? These people are not in touch with reality. They are not like listening, or we just can't trust them. I have a son-in-law who's a car salesman, and I told him, I says, the only people that people distrust more than you is elected officials, and I think it's a misnomer. But Congressman, I'd appreciate your comment on that.
I think you're right on, Jack. And besides, they're not to be trusted. Just look at our debt bomb. We are $16 trillion in debt because politicians have found a way to spend your money, borrow against your money and your children's future and your future to come back with the bacon to the hometown and say, look what I delivered. Didn't cost me anything. Well, this debt bomb is growing and growing, and I think people are more aware of it, and the level of trust has been totally eroded. Recently, the Congress had an 11% approval rating, which puts them just a little ahead of pederasts or something. I mean, it's just awful. But it'll continue that way until we deliver on what we said we're there to deliver, and that is a responsible fiscal plan. I'll tell you that the House is in order. This Republican House has been in business now 17 months. They cut discretionary spending, the things they can spend, and they've delivered a set of priorities for taxes, job growth, etc. We have over 30 bills sitting on the floor of the Senate, which is totally dysfunctional. They have not been able to pass a budget. They have not even addressed these bills because if they go to committee, they might have to vote on them. So they would rather do nothing. So we got to get...
Congressman, if I could interrupt you for a second. You mentioned something here a minute ago about a word that starts with a T called a trillion. How do, the average person like myself, I don't think we can comprehend when you start talking about trillions of dollars. It's almost unimaginable.
It is. I mean, we have a handle on what a million is. Well, you need 1,000 million to make a billion. Then you need 1,000 billion to make a trillion. This is mind-boggling numbers. And the stimulus package was $1 trillion. It got us nothing.
Where we've been talking about things that voters care about, as opposed to the things, Congressman, you probably are usually asked, which is the things that editors are asked about, which might be a big difference, especially when you talk about some of these urban news media outlets and the newspapers, the editorial writers. Supervisor, you asked the congressman a moment ago in the last segment, about trust. Now, we had Hillary Clinton promise us 200,000 jobs, you remember, when she was running for the United States Senate.
Yeah, I don't know where they were, but...
Well, they're out there someplace. We're still looking for them. We'll find them sooner or later. What would you say to the congressman now running for the United States Senate? He answered the question about trust, but what do you want to hear more about what's a candidate running for the Senate is going to promise us?
Well, Congressman, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but that's why you're here.
Go ahead.
And I want to know, and I think the people like myself want to know, is you got some answers. You got some solutions. You got some ideas. If you didn't have, you wouldn't be running. And I'd like to really, we're sitting across from each other, I'd like to hear some of your ideas, please.
Well, let me back up a moment. I'll tell you the ideas are in response to what I think our biggest problems are, and that is what is the threat to this society and our economy, and it is simply this debt bomb. We borrow 40 cents on every dollar we spend federally. We borrow lately 1.3 trillion a year for the last 4 years. Overall debt is close to 16 trillion. What happens if we do not address this? Well, we only have to look to Greece, or years ago, not that long ago, Argentina or Moscow, where the only way out is for a government to hyperinflate, destroying the middle class, destroying all the social programs. Can it happen here? Of course it can. And it will, unless we have some leadership and backbone in what to do. Now, the plan is, how do we get control of the budget and spending? And there is no easy solution. Paul Ryan has put together a plan that says, fellas, buy into this, in 4 or 5 years, we can hit budget neutrality. That is, our expenditures and our income even out. But we'll go to 20 trillion in debt before that happens. But we can trend it down now, and we can get a handle on it. Beyond that, if we're responsible and pass this balanced budget amendment, we can get out of debt in 27 years. Yeah. How will that affect all our programs? There's Social Security and Medicare. These programs we know. President Obama will tell you the same thing. It's a matter of trust. These are not sustainable. Well, what are we doing about it? We asked the president. He's pointing left and right and up and down and trying to figure out a way to blame it on George Bush. No plan. There is a plan. We can do it. In the future, we can protect people that are 55 years and older, but those that are younger are going to pay more and they're going to get less. But we will have a responsible social program and a safety net that is necessary. Every problem that we have, we made ourselves. And every problem has a solution we can do, but it requires facing the truth and doing what's right and politically courageous. A lot of people don't want to be told the truth. And by the way, they won't be told the truth, particularly by the other side here. Mm-hmm. But
let me ask you something else to go along with that. You know, a lot like myself, I run a local government. We have state governments, and everybody has these things that you have to balance your budget. You can't spend more than you take in. You know, that's a kind of a pretty good premise of running government. Don't overspend, and don't create programs and things that you can't afford, because you're going to get in the situation that you're talking about. So I'm still saying, like, okay, how are we going to do this, and what's going to happen to our children?
Well, we're going to need a plan, and it won't be exactly like the Ryan plan, but it'll be close to something like that. It has to be done. It's going to take a long time.
Congressman, I'm curious about something, and we were talking about this earlier. I don't mean this rhetorically. I don't mean to be glib. I really curious. I mean, your fellow members of Congress of the Democrat persuasion are all smart people. I mean, they got to be. So, you know, you don't get elected to the United States Senate, the United States Congress. You know, if you can't sort of figure out. I mean, they're smart people. I'll just come out and say it. There might be some exceptions. So my question is, why are they just blind to this crushing debt issue? I mean, do they not pay attention to what's going on in places like Greece and Spain and Portugal? What is it that is blocking their pulling their head out of the sand and saying, hey, we got a problem here and we got to deal with it?
As long as these politicians are thinking only to the next election, they can kick the can down the road. And this has been going on for years. Their concern isn't your children's future. It's their election in November. It's as simple as that.
We've been talking about issues of concern to those of us here in upstate New York. Jack, you were talking a moment ago about how you deal with the deficit issue and whatnot. We got in this last segment, what else would you want to know, or would your constituents want to know, about what Congressman Turner would do if he was in the United States Senate?
Well, I think the one big thing that is a concern, obviously, of everybody's is health care. And as we know, I don't think Obamacare is the actual name of the law. However, now Gillibrand, I would believe, is a big supporter of Obamacare. And if I was to put you on the spot right now, which matter of fact I will, and ask you if I had you and her in the same room together, and I would say, okay, tell me how your opinion and your look at the Obamacare legislation is compared to that of Senator Gillibrand.
Well, the senator has supported Obamacare, and there are many aspects of it that we take serious issue with. Lately, one of the most important, and I'm very proud to stand with over 40 religious institutions to force the Obama administration to back off their attempt to force these institutions to provide services against their fundamental beliefs. Now, Senator Gillibrand seems to be in that camp, and I take big issue with that. And I think many people do. And if you don't mind, email me at Turner for New York, and I'd be happy to talk more about this. This is
all right, what is that email address? If people want to ask you questions or see where you stand on the issues, Congressman, as you're running for the United States Senate, go ahead.
Go to the website, Turner for New York, and then you can click on the Facebook or account.
Well, you got one of them things.
Oh, yeah. But, and I Twitter,
I'm still
too.
figuring it out myself. You're a Twitterer, too?
Well, only fully clothed, believe me. I'm careful about that.
Well, that's how you got to Congress, is that, your predecessor was a... I mean, you can't criticize it. It actually helped you out quite a bit there. We've been talking with Congressman Bob Turner, who is running for the United States Senate, hoping to take the seat currently held by the most liberal member of the United States Senate, New York's own Kirsten Gillibrand, and Supervisor Jack Ziegenfuss. Tanaco Hockton had a discussion about the issues, why we should trust politicians, and why we should vote for Congressman Bob Turner in the Republican primary on June 26. We'll be back next time. In the meantime, may God bless America, and may God bless our troops serving